love mahjong. I got good at it. I taught myself how. I can teach you if you want. So the easiest way to go for completion for mahjong, and this will get you through just about everything that you need to do except for some special scenarios. What you should do is go for all triples every time. It will help you even in Yakuza 0 where they don't translate these. Well, if you're just trying to get triples, you don't need to know if they go in sequence, so just do triples. You don't have to worry if you open a hand. You can always go, because like some of the reason why people get to the point where they like can't finish their hand is because they've stolen tiles. If you are always going for triplets, it's always okay to steal tiles, because you can always go out with a triplet hand. One thing to keep in mind is that the discards are open, so you can see what everyone else has discarded. So, just thinking statistically, there's 4 of every kind of tile. Anything that somebody has discarded, there's less of a chance that you'll get a triplet. So if somebody else discards something, you should probably discard it too, unless you already have 2 of them. If 2 of them have been discarded, you can't get a triplet, so you might as well get rid of it. The other good thing about doing triplets, you can steal from anyone. If you're doing sequences, you can only steal from the person on your left. But for triplets, you can steal from anyone, so it gives you a better statistical chance of making triplets. The other thing to keep in mind, anything that you discard, you can't win with. If I discard a 2 of bamboo, I can't get 2 of them later and then steal the 3rd one. Like, there's a rule against that. The easiest way to think of it is if you discard something, you're giving up on that and you can't take it anymore. And then you just grind it, baby. Then it's just grinding. Because the thing about mahjong that makes it difficult if you don't understand it is that you can only get points from named hands. In poker, a named hand would be a flush or a straight. So you have to have something that's a named hand. It's called a yaku. Don't worry about that. All triples, that's a yaku. You can go out on all triples, always. If you do it this way, you have an opportunity to win, but you're going to have to grind it. But you can win it. Just do it this way. And then the only things to keep in mind also is always, when it's your turn, always push square to see if you can reach. If you can reach, always do it. Some of the completion mean you need to have reached. So, like, there's a thing called Ipatsu. That's when you win right after a reach. You have to reach to get it, so just reach every time. And then the game will play itself. The only other thing that you really need to worry about is I think Yakuza 0, and I know Lost Judgment have some, like, specialty, like, completions, but usually it's just, like, beat this table, you know, win this amount of money. You know, like, if you're doing it in Yakuza 0, you want to make sure you do it, like, towards the end game when you have a lot of money, and then it's just like the regular gambling where you just want to do it at the high tables, so you're like betting the most money. Because it does have setups like poker, it's got an element of randomness to it where you can play the statistically like best way you possibly can, and it still is like doesn't guarantee that you're gonna win. What's in the middle? So the tiles in the middle they're called the dead wall. There's another way to get points. It's called the Dora. So if you play with red Dora on, you get some 5s are red. You always want to try to keep those because they give you an extra point, which gives you more points when you total up your score at the end. And so the one in the middle, there's stacked rows. It's like a double stack. So there's 10 tiles that will never come out, and you don't know which ones they are except the one. If you reach and win, then the tile on the bottom also comes into play. So you see how it's the 1 of characters is showing? That means that the 2 of characters will give you extra points. It'll be a Dora, and it'll give you extra points. But it also means, like, if you're going for triplets, you probably aren't going to get a triplet of the 1 of characters because there's 1 less available. Yeah, so do not cheat. Just make sure you say yes to every time. It's like, do you want a pawn? Say yes. If they ask you if you want a con, that means 4 of a kind, go ahead and say yes. You can con. And see, then you might end up in a situation like this. Accidental sequence. That's your absolute basic strategy. That's just the basic strategy for, like, I don't like this, and I'm not enjoying it, so I just want to get my completion and leave. Great. Do that, and you'll get it. The only thing that you're missing are a couple of, like, specialty ones, and when you get to those, you should be familiar enough with at least how to do the cheating and pawning and stuff that it should make sense to you, the instructions for, like, how to get a full straight, or whatever you need to do. Or the Warami mahjong in Lost Judgment. Like, once you get to that, you'll be set, because you'll, like, you know, you'll be able to look up and kind of understand the instructions a little better. What does chi do? Chi is when you steal, but instead of it being 3 of a kind, it's 3, 4, 5, or 4, 5, 6. So sometimes, like, if there was another 6, like, so if somebody puts down the 6 of bamboo, the game's going to offer it to me as a pawn or a chi. Because you could make 4, 5, 6 with it, or you could make 6, 6, 6 metal. You could make, like, the triplet of 6s. So it lets you decide by asking you which one you want. But it doesn't tell you. You have to remember, pawn is 3 of a kind, and chi is a sequence. You'll do it wrong and be like, "Arr," and that's how you'll remember. That's how I remember. Like, oh no, I shouldn't have done it that way. And then that just is what it is. Like, there's a lot more to it than that. It can get pretty deep as a game, but I think that's enough. Like, that'll get you started. And then if you like it, you can learn more about it. I feel like it's a lot to ask. Especially if you start at, like, Yakuza 0. I love mahjong now, but, like, when I first opened a mahjong screen, I was like, what is this? And especially with Yakuza 0, because, like, none of the translations where we have on the characters 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, none of that's there. They don't do that. I had to, like, make a little cheat sheet so I could, like, check it against the cheat sheet until I just taught myself how to read it. I'm just like, listen, when I tell you playing a Yakuza 0 can change your life, I'm not kidding, and I do mean for the better. It took me a while to kind of, even with, like, the guides online, I was like, this is not clicking. And the way I kind of found my way into it was because I did play a lot of Rummy when I was a kid. So once I kind of had that as an in, the rest of it started making a little bit more sense. And I think that, like, just having as a basic strategy for Westerners who are not familiar with this game at all and who aren't familiar with Rummy and maybe are just, like, frustrated with it and just want their completion, I think having just as a basic strategy, just do triples, you know, here's a couple of extra things to think of. It can get people their completion like they want, and, like, maybe also, like, give people a way in to get used to it, and then maybe some people will find that they, like, actually do like it. It's a pretty rad game, I think, but I can see how it's, like, you know, kind of alienating at first glance, because it's just really different, and they don't explain it at all. Like, they do explain it, but it's not really enough of an explanation, I think. Because I had to put together a bunch of different explanations from a bunch of different places, and also, like, be familiar with Rummy, so I didn't feel like it was a lot of explanation, to be honest. I felt a little bit more could be due. And, like, I've said this to people, too, and they're like, oh, no, it's not a good strategy because there's, like, other strategies that will, like, work faster or better. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's not like, just going for triplets every time, that is not an optimal strategy for Mahjong. If you know how to play Mahjong, it's not. But if you don't, and you don't really want to learn, or you're just tired of it and frustrated with it, then, like, it's viable. Maybe if people have an easier way in, they'll like it better. It is pretty neat if you just give it a try. But it also is, like, maybe not for everyone, and I think that's okay.